Welcome to Tabletop Gaming with Juice. Today, I want to talk about my experience trying 7DSystem by DMGinfo the other night for the very first time. A great little system that I'm excited to talk about. If this is your first time here, I hope you will think about smashing the subscribe button, click the like button, and if anything comes up during this video that you feel like commenting on, please leave it below. I would love to hear your thoughts. Should you like anything that you see in this video, please head on over to my Patreon and think about supporting me, as well as joining up with my Discord server or joining my Facebook community over at Master the Game, where we discuss tabletop RPGs in game theory, mechanics, where I'm always coming up with my own homebrew things and sharing them through live videos. DMGinfo also created an awesome, I can't say it enough, module in which you can play the 7DSystem with it, Dungeons and Dragons, almost anything you can think of, you can run through this module. So I highly encourage you to go over and get Under the Tavern on their website. There's various versions of it, whether you want the one with illustrations or you just need the text. So again, go check that out. Let them know that Juice sent you. So let's get into the video. So Saturday night, we had the chance, and I mean me, my wife, my friend Paul, and Amanda had the chance to play with DMGinfo in his very own game system called the 7DSystem. I was expecting the game to be a little more difficult because I had downloaded and viewed some of the sheets, which I'm going to show you guys those right here. Now the sheets weren't the most clear in my opinion, but once we started playing, I would say about a half hour in, I started to understand how the dice mechanics worked. The character sheet, for not having a real explanation beforehand, again, was very confusing to me. However, after going through character creation and having some things explained to me, again, it was much more understandable and is actually quite simple. Now, the part that I didn't quite get until after the game was actually combat and how you determine difficulties and things like that. After talking to the creator, Gareth himself, the thing that I learned is that the game's made for miniatures. It's made for tactical advantages, and depending on what you do in combat, whether it's move or anything, it can change the number of dice you roll. Now the core mechanic of the game is really simple. It's if you roll a 1 on the die, it's a success. That's it. It's not about rolling high, it's about rolling a 1. If you roll a 2, you can use a story point to make it a 1, which I thought was kind of cool. Story point is sort of like inspiration for you D&D fans out there, or bennies if you like Savage Worlds, or luck points, or hero points. You know, there's a lot of things it's called in other systems, and it's handled a little differently in other systems as well. But that's just one of the many things you can do with it. Another thing you can do is you can choose to re-roll after you roll, or beforehand, before rolling, you can choose to change the difficulty of your rolls with the hero points. So the 7DSystem has its name because it's a difficulty of 1 through 7. A 1 means you roll a d2, a 2 means you roll a d4, a 3 means you roll a d6, 4 d8, 5 is a d10, a 6 is a d12, and a 7 is a d20. So you can imagine how hard that would be to roll a 1. Now, if you're proficient in something or good at it, you get a extra die roll. So if I'm good at, we'll say, shooting my pistol, I have a +1 for my pistol. That means I roll 2 dice of whatever difficulty it is. Difficulty of, we'll say, 2. So now I'm rolling 2d4s, and I just need a 1 on either of those dice to succeed. That was really simple to me. I got that really quick, and I liked it. The part where I kept messing up was I did not have a d2, and so at first I was messing up my rolls. He would say difficulty 2, and I would be like, oh, okay, and I'd roll a d6 because I'm like, oh, a d4 is my smallest die. But I have a d6 that says yes or no. I just laid my dice out on my table, so it was that d6. Excuse me. Laid my dice out, so it was that d6. Then it was the d4, a normal d6, d8, d10, d12, d20. And when I did that, it made it worlds easier. So that wasn't too bad. The part that was interesting to me that I didn't expect also was damage. You do not roll damage dice. In fact, unless you have armor, if you're hit, you're hit. If you have an armor and stuff, then you're going to roll whether it actually hurts you or not. So I thought that was interesting. Heavier monsters automatically have it. If you're the same size, I think it's a wash, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong about this because this is the part of the system that I'm a little muddy on. But yeah. So it was a little bit more difficult for me to understand that portion because we only had really one combat, and I don't think it came into play really. But I don't know. Now, I'm not fully comfortable running this system yet. I would probably have to play it a couple more times and have some things explained a little bit more to me. However, I could see this being something that within 2-3 sessions, I would know it in and out. There's some things with magic that are a little bit trickier to remember for me. For example, you use magic, but you have to roll whether or not you've used up all your energy. And it's the same thing that applies to ammunition. And it's a little differently, but if you shoot a weapon, you roll to see if it's jammed, if it has the jammed property. So like an old gun might have that. And you roll to see if you run out of ammunition, which is interesting. So rather than, let's keep track in our inventory of every single thing, you roll for it every time. So I like that. I thought that was a good way to keep the game flowing and not become an accounting, session at the table for 20 minutes before you play. I also want to note that the skills, the way you level up your abilities and skills is by using them. You could start off without a skill, and if you just decide, I want to see if I can get my hand axe up, then you just use it. And every time you succeed, you get a point in it. Another thing you can do is if you don't have the character sheet, you can use slash marks, typical 1, 2, 3, 4, and then one line through. If you get through one line through, that's your first level, so that would be like your D2 rank. Do it again, that's your D4 rank. So if it's a normal skill, you're going to do it where you go through your D2, your D4, and then boom, now you have your forte. Then you're going to go through and do it again for D6, D8, D10, 12, yada, 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 until you have an expertise. Your actual skill might be something physical, like just physical. Your forte might be swimming, and your expertise might be deep dive swimming, or it might be racing, or it might be endurance swimming, so you can swim for a very long time. So again, you could have multiple expertises for the same forte, and the forte would obviously be a sub of physical. So I thought that was pretty interesting. One thing with skills too is that as you fill in a box and you get the 5 marks, you up another die type. So you can roll 3, 4 dice probably on some things. You actually can get even higher than that. So that's kind of cool that you could have a lot of dice you're rolling and have a good chance as you gain experience. Now, experience, again, is only by using skills. There are no actual experience points. So that's something that I thought was really well done. So again, props to you, DMG. You made a really interesting system for skills. One of the things DMG did that I've never really played a session like this, he did turn order through the whole game. Every social interaction, everything was in turn order. And there were some things I really liked about this. I liked that it felt like every player had a chance to speak. Every player was able to contribute in almost every single situation. And it gave some players, and I think because all of us were experience, this wouldn't have been a problem, but it gave everybody time to think about what their response was going to be, depending on who said what and when. So, for example, I was last in the turn order. Amanda was first. So after Amanda was Paula and then Paul. Now, when Amanda would say something, say it was to my character, I had 2 other players to wait for before I could respond. And he kept it really short. At times, there were things that I wanted to say more about, and that happened a couple times to the other players. And for the most part, it wasn't a problem for us. We liked it a lot. Amanda is more narrative. She likes having a little more agency and going with things. I do too, at times, but I did really like how this was done. I think, for me, this isn't a way that I would do things in the future for most. I wouldn't say most. I probably wouldn't use it all the time. I would probably use it in any dangerous area, whether it's a dungeon or even if it's just before combat. I might choose to use it occasionally in more safe areas, like a tavern or whatever. And I could see myself using it more with shy players rather than experienced players who enjoy role-playing a lot. But it is something that I now have in my toolbox, and I've seen how it can work in a great way. So I'm going to use it a little bit more in the future. So that's not really about the system, but for me, it's one of my takeaways from the game. So I thought it was important to share it here. And it's not anything profoundly new. I've heard of people doing this before. I just had never experienced it like that before. The system actually has about 8 sheets that you need to play. And I would definitely recommend, if you ever play it, print the sheets out, have them in front of you, because there's charts and tables that, again, will be very helpful as you play. Always use those, no doubt about it. I would also recommend laying your dice out in order, especially because of the D2. That's the part I think that'll throw a lot of people off, because most games don't use a D2. So put your dice in order. And I would also say, especially early on, have at least 2 die types of everything, maybe 3 or 4. After a couple sessions, you'll probably need upwards of 4 or 5, depending on how often you do the same things and succeed. One thing that I noticed too about the system is it started off really gritty, and that's because we only had points based on our race and our background, and then our archetype gave us story hooks, which I was kind of late to the game because I was putting my son to sleep. So I actually didn't get an archetype and didn't realize that until today when I was talking to my wife about the game. Kind of wish I did, because I think it would have helped me a little bit. I didn't quite know how I was going to roleplay my character going into the game, and so I think that probably would have given me a better direction with him. And there were points in the game too where I didn't even know what to do necessarily, and that was just because I didn't have a good feel for my character, really. And that's, I think, pretty normal in a first session if you haven't put thought into your backstory. I didn't put a lot of thought going into it. It was a one-shot. I was just excited to try the system more than anything. So, 7DSystem. If I had to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, I think I would probably give it a solid 7. And that number could go up because, again, I think it is a good, easy system. I think it's something you can learn very quickly. And, there are some things initially that after we played, I thought, okay, I might strip these things out of it or take it down. But I think to really gauge that, I would have to play a few more sessions. I think it's easier than Savage Worlds. I think D&D for me is still more intuitive for me. It's something that I'm familiar with, and so that could be skewing my judgment there. This game doesn't use a D20 to hit unless it's a difficulty of 7, which you don't want a difficulty of 7. So that's something for me that's always hard to get used to. I like that there's a chance to use all of my dice equally depending on how difficult tasks are. And the only one that I wouldn't be using is the percentile. But I like that. I like how the dice are used. And again, I think this would be a fun system to play again. I wouldn't mind playing a campaign. I'm interested in seeing how something more modern or a supers game would be played with it, because I think the system can handle any genre. Our characters, to give you an idea, were very odd. I was the only, I think, normal fantasy race, being a dwarf, a dwarven blacksmith. My wife Paula played what was she? She was a fey creature herbalist. I don't even think she said exactly what type of fey creature she was. Um, so I don't remember. I don't know what her character looked like offhand. We had Grimace, played by Amanda, who was um, on four legs and didn't really. At least I think so. Maybe she switched. Oh, I think she did switch to an oxen type creature. Think of oh gosh, think of kind of like a minotaur, but not all hairy. I don't think. But she played something like that. Who was a baker, and then Paul played a mimic who mostly was a doll, was limp most of the session. And I will say it was fun. I was worried because his character was going to be a mute. I've played a campaign with a mute before with me as the game master, and it was difficult because he would chime in saying stuff to the group, but again, he's a mute, so he's not actually able to communicate with anyone except for one character in the group. So it made it difficult because I had to say, well, they wouldn't have heard that. And I don't like to do that to players. I don't like to say no to players, but I felt like because his character was a mute, I had to. So I was anticipating some problems there, and it wasn't. He spent almost half the session being a limp doll. And the other thing, when he said he was a doll, I was thinking more like a Raggedy Ann doll. No, he was like a Pinocchio doll, a wooden doll. And it was funny, after the session, we discussed, hey, so what did your character look like? And we talked about how we all envisioned it, and we all had a different idea for what kind of doll he was. So that was funny. Grimace, Amanda, she actually thought he was like a porcelain doll. And then the DM thought he was like a wooden, like an all wooden doll, I think. And I want to say that Paul himself said that he was a wooden doll, but like the ones on strings, kind of. And then I obviously again thought he was like an all cloth doll with like maybe buttons for eyes. So it was interesting, and I didn't figure out till later in the session when I asked some questions that he was wooden with his eyes painted on, and stuff like that. So it was very interesting. But it was really fun because in the session he was sneakily trying to do things without being noticed by the group, and we kept having little things that would happen, like I shoved him in Amanda's character's mouth because she was talking when I heard danger, or thought I heard danger, which ended up being danger. And then at one point she tossed the doll to the boglodites, which I thought was really cool too. I like that he came up with that on the spot, I think. So he tossed the doll to the boglodites, and they caught the doll, and then the doll sneakily attacked. Now I was hoping the doll, the mimic, was going to come out and bite the face, like, and just give up what he was right away. And he didn't. He like sneakily jabbed him, like turned his finger into like a needle and jabbed him. But I was dying for him to like just all of a sudden go, you know, that would have been great. But no, he didn't. It took a long time before we figured out that, hey, this doll is animated. And yeah, I thought the monsters were cool. I loved DMG's narration. I liked how he played the monsters and the noises and the expressions from his NPCs. Very good job, DMG, if you're watching this. I really enjoyed that. Again, not about the system. This is more about the game itself. And yeah, so The link to the game you can see at the end of this video. I will have a end card for that. So if you are interested in watching that, go check that out. It's about 3.5 hours, 3 hours and 45 minutes. Well worth watching for sure. I think it's, I'm excited. I'm going to watch it back this week. I think it'll be a good game to listen to. The system, I'm going to link to Gareth's website, DMGinfo's website, so you can go check that out. The game's about 8 pages right now. I didn't see, I'm not sure if it's up for sale yet. I think it might be. I do not own the full copy version. I want to. Again, I think it's a game I would play. I don't think it's a game I would run. I just don't think I'm comfortable with it to that level yet. But my wife loved the game. Paul seemed interested. We were talking about it online today and different scenarios and different types of games that he would play with it, like different settings and stuff. So that was cool. And I think Amanda liked the system itself too. So again, I think it's a good system. I really do. There's a lot of good ideas inside of it. And I think it is something that you can learn very quickly. So definitely, if this sounds like something you're interested in, go check it out. So if you like this, once again, I want to say, please click the like button, subscribe, smash that subscribe button, subscribe, because I will be doing more videos like this in the future. Also, Flip Through Fridays will be back. That is something that I've had some talks with people, and a lot of people want to see that return, so that will be coming back. So again, subscribe and you will see that. If you feel like it, head on over to my Patreon and Discord and all of that, and I will talk to you guys next time. Thank you very much. I am Juice. I will see you later.